Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing inspiring stories from business owners, entrepreneurs, and real estate investors on the pursuit of wealth and financial freedom. This episode of the Inspire to Invest podcast has been brought to you by the REI Loop. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Inspire to Invest. I've got Victoria Cluney here with me from Cluney Co., and she's joining us from Ottawa. She's a seasoned real estate investor with more than 20 years experience in multifamily properties, boutique hospitality, and more recently, tiny home communities, and was just recently featured on Dragon's Den, so we'll dive into that. She's also got a 23-year military background and a master's in organizational psychology, blending leadership, human behavior, and business development to provide strategic thinking and sales coaching for entrepreneurs. As the founder of WeBuild and president of Crua, Victoria empowers ambitious women in business and real estate while leading Build Pro.
Thank you for having me, Serena. It's great to connect with you. I'm fantastic.
So I found that so interesting that you have this military background. So we'll kind of go back a little bit and talk about what that was like being a woman in the military, and then, where you made that jump over into real estate, because obviously those are two very, very different things.
They are. And so my career in the military started at 18 years old, fresh out of high school. I just turned 18, and then literally 10 days later, I'm on my way to basic training. So
Wow.
I didn't have a lot of time to even understand what was happening to me. And yeah, it was really challenging because when I joined in 2001, and I joined the infantry reserves at the beginning, but I went right into full-time work because the reserves is like part-time military, but I was offered a position. I worked full-time, and it was a big culture shock to go from a high school girl, teenager, to now a woman in the military, but also one of the most challenging types of occupations, especially
Yeah.
for a woman. And 23 years ago, that wasn't easy. And
Now,
so
do you have family in the military? Like, what was your attraction
do
to that field?
I wouldn't even say there was an attraction to it. I joke around that I got tricked into it. Really, I was supposed to be a horseback riding instructor after high school, but my father, who was military, convinced my boyfriend at the time to join, and I thought it was a good idea to follow along. I guess young love and
Oh, and so did you go and he
naive.
didn't?
So, yeah, so we both, that would have been tragic. We both ended up going basic training the exact same time.
Yeah.
We were in different companies, so we never got to see each other. But yeah, I kind of got thrust into it. And then I didn't think that it was the right fit for me. But, 23 years goes by pretty quickly. And I've learned just so much from it. And I'm so grateful for what I have learned. It's been very challenging, but I think that that's one of the reasons that I am the kind of businesswoman that I am today, because I have had to overcome a lot from my career.
And if nothing else, I think one thing with entrepreneurship is that you have to be really disciplined and you have to be really consistent in everything you do. And sometimes people think, oh, well, if you're an entrepreneur, it can be easy to like sleep in and be like, I'll just watch TV instead,
Absolutely.
but I think you have to make sure that you're always kind of like doing what you got to do. And that probably gave you a great foundation for where you're at now.
Exactly. I mean, the military is known for its discipline, and at the beginning, you have somebody who's forcing you to be disciplined, but then just over time, naturally, you adopt that identity. And so
Yeah.
it is really a big part of who I am today. And again, just very grateful for it.
Now, where did real estate come into the mix? Like, at what
Yeah,
point, I'm
how did
sure
that?
even just when you think about being a woman and maybe at the point where you want to have a family or thinking more long term, I'm sure that you were having all those, thoughts and concerns and stuff like that. But maybe you can share how that evolved for you.
So I became an accidental investor again because I was so young and I was surrounded by what you would say like quote unquote grown-ups in the Canadian Armed Forces. When I got posted to Nova Scotia from Ontario, which was at the very early days of my career, about 2 years in,
Yeah.
I had to go find somewhere new to live. And so I was convinced to purchase a property instead of renting. And so I purchased a townhouse, and it was a pre-construction. And I had a partner at the time, and so we purchased it together, but I went to Nova Scotia first. And I felt really kind of cool at around 20 years old. Now I'm picking all the countertops, all the colors, and what I thought was like very permanent decisions.
Yeah.
But then watching the market evolve over the past year, I noticed that the townhouses similar to ours were selling now for quite a bit more than what we purchased it. And
Hmm.
that's where, I think like the entrepreneurship just evolved from there. And so we decided to sell that townhouse within about a year and do the exact same thing for another pre-construction, but this time a home. And so now I'm dealing with actual, they give you allowances. So instead of the developer saying, okay, you've got seven choices, now I have $10,000 to design a kitchen. So
Yeah.
I'm just like taking it to that next level.
Yeah.
And then eventually I bought my own single family home. That relationship dissolved and I got posted to the US. And so I had to do something with that home. And this was around 2007. And so the market at that time, we're just going into the collapse, if you remember
Yeah.
'08.
Hmm.
And I would have lost quite a bit of money buying that home and trying to sell it right away.
Yeah.
So then I became a landlord
Yeah.
and I started to manage it at a distance. And
Yeah.
I have my friends, again, we're just in our young 20s and they're emailing me because there's not really any texting at that time,
Yeah.
the state of the home. And I'm, going on Kijiji and just trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people start, right? I mean, there's so many things even looking back now that I'm like, oh, if I knew
Mm,
about this then, I'm sure
absolutely.
we all would have gone out to try to buy like multifamily buildings or something like that, knowing what we know
Totally.
now and just when it comes to finances and, just everything about it, right? But you went from that townhouse and becoming this accidental landlord. How did you shift over into development and, what you're doing now that kind of
Yeah.
landed you on Dragon's Den?
So I had to have a full breakdown and collapse and say, I don't want any of this anymore. It was about a decade now of managing it. My new partner, I convinced him to rent out his condo in BC. And we had amassed a couple of properties by this time, but I hated being a landlord. So I actually really resented it for that decade. And I got to the point that I just sold everything. I was
Yeah,
like, we're
I'm
done.
done.
We sold everything.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I'd actually seen the money that we had made because I wasn't savvy for that first decade. I wasn't treating it like a business. I was managing it out of like fear and scarcity, and I didn't want to hire people, and
Yeah.
I wasn't raising the rents properly. And so I made all the mistakes that you could make, sold everything.
Yeah.
But then when I saw the money after like a decade of appreciation, that was when it was like, okay, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't actually that bad.
It's like a
And
redeeming quality to it.
it was. And it was the thing that shifted me. And I said, okay, I'm going to go back. I'm going to be intentional this time.
Yeah.
And so I reinvested it back into the market, more purpose-built multifamily.
Hmm.
And the thing that really kind of lit it up for me was a glamping retreat that I purchased.
Yeah.
Because multifamily is great and it has its place. It's very like, set it and forget it if you get a good one. But the hospitality industry, which is where like my love was born and that creativity came from,
Yeah.
started with this glamping retreat. And so yeah, I just started to market it,
Yeah.
found social media through this because again, the military, you don't really gravitate to putting yourself online.
Well,
It's
and
not
you
really
wouldn't need it,
smart.
nor are you probably
Don't need
allowed.
it.
Like, I don't know what the
Yeah.
restrictions are, but I know there's a lot wrapped up in like essential services, at least with like police and fire. So I'm
You
sure.
have to be very cognizant of that, what type of exposure, what type of message you are representing the Canadian Armed Forces at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
so I'm very aware of my messaging and what I'm saying because of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I started this account and that kind of opened up doors for me as well. And people started coming in and the news contacted me and global media, global news wanted to do segments and
Mhm.
it opened up to networks. And so that was really where I would say everything kind of catapulted.
Now, for the glamping, was that something that came about during the pandemic where people were more limited with their travel?
It was right before the pandemic. So timing was perfect for us because in Nova Scotia, we had the East Coast bubble. So people could still travel within Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
So we were getting a ton of business that were coming to this glamping, and the cabins that we had, these little bunkies on a lake, were just far apart. And it was the perfect getaway that everybody was looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. I feel like the cottage business, exploded during the
Mhm.
pandemic here. And even for our neighbor, she kind of timed it perfectly,
Yep.
walked away with a lot of money in her pocket. And I think now the people that took over are like, oh, like we paid too much. And
Yes,
going to
I've
see that
talked to a
back for
lot now.
quite some
That's great.
time. But,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
It is what it is. So we got lucky with timing. We ultimately sold the cottage because then we got posted to Ottawa,
Yeah.
and managing it from a distance would have been really difficult. And again, hindsight, I wish I would have thought about bringing on a boots on the ground who could have taken that, but I wasn't in that mindset at that time. And again, back to networking and why that's so important because today, now I've done it myself multiple times, but I had to see people do it first before I would even think to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a mentor that once said to me, if you look at something differently, it'll start to look different, right? And sometimes it's just meeting that right person that's like, oh, but
Exactly.
why sell it? You could do this, or, just trying to
Perspective.
figure some of those things out. And now with capital gains, I'm sure there's a lot of investors that might rethink their strategy because instead of 50%, they could be looking at 66, right? So it's going to
That's
kind of
right.
change the game for a lot of people. So now, where did the tiny homes come into the mix?
So the tiny homes was we had hired these contractors. So now I'm doing the real estate game and I'm making a name for myself in Ottawa and I'm leveraging social media and marketing and partnerships and just starting to grow
Yeah,
because I'm taking all the foundation that I had built quietly by myself, that slow growth and the training, and I'm applying it. And so I'm able to move pretty quickly in the game. And I had hired contractors to create a bathroom for us because we have this gym that we invite people over to. And so I wanted to have a powder room for people to have access with the gym.
yeah,
The contractors were the type of people that you just know when you hire somebody that's really good, the communication's great,
yeah.
they do good
Sounds
work.
you found a unicorn.
Right? Yeah, you hold on to them
I was
real
like, hang
tight.
on, you're talking about contractors here, right?
I know, I know. These were fantastic. And so they also learned how involved I was in the real estate space. So they stayed in touch with me. And
Hmm.
about a year later, they invited me out to come take a look at a coach home that they had built. And
Yeah,
they put like a cute little spread out and they put a lot of time invested in that
yeah,
meeting.
yeah,
And we got to talking about tiny homes and we got to talking about actually buying some land in the west end of Ottawa and how cool would that be to create a village.
yeah,
Well, then we go about our way and I start looking into it a little bit, but nothing really comes from it. And then again, a year later, I get a call again from the same contractor to say, we partnered with a manufacturer who does modular homes and we're going to make this happen. Do you want in?
yeah.
And it was an easy yes. And
Wow.
so from there, we just started to create the synergy within the team and everybody's roles. And Dragon's Den came about because I was randomly scrolling on social media and this ad came up for a networking event in Ottawa, and you get to meet the producers of the Dragon's Den.
Yeah,
I knew that there'd be auditions, but it wasn't that you had to audition to attend.
yeah,
So I thought, well, how cool would that be if we were to do this next year? I didn't feel like we were ready this year because we
yeah,
were so new in the startup game. And I went and I'm signing in and they're like, "Are you auditioning?" And I said, "No, no, not today, but when's your next opportunity?" And they said, "Well, this is actually it. And there's no guarantee that there's going to be a season 20." So they're
yeah,
like, "Let's do it." They were so casual about it, right? Just do it.
yeah.
And me, not being one to like shy away from a challenge. And I thought, well, what is the worst that can happen? At least I get experience in
Mhm.
the process.
Yeah,
And so I did it. And
yeah,
yeah, I auditioned that day, not prepared. They had coaches walking around. So I talked to somebody to just really help me dial the pitch in.
yeah.
And I could tell right away they loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's something that just, again, the perfect timing, right? Like there's such a
Perfect timing.
necessity for affordable housing right now. And, Canada just it's becoming so increasingly more expensive to live. And
Yeah.
inflation's compounding that. So I think it was probably just the perfect storm for you and just
Mhm.
obviously something that was meant to be that you're in that right place and you seized the opportunity.
Sun, moon, stars aligned. And the leaning in, right? Because like everything inside of me was like, you're not ready.
Hmm.
Don't do it.
Will you
And
ever be ready?
you'll never, ever be ready,
Yeah.
100%. And that really is something that I take to heart. I just always do it because I know that anything that would be considered a failure or a setback is lessons learned to make me stronger. So I really truly believe it and I live it. And, I get rewarded for it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now, on that note, we're just going to take a really brief break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. There's no denying that real estate is one of the tried and true ways to grow your wealth. But if you don't have access to the right systems or software, you could run into issues from the very beginning. If this sounds like you, then you have to check out the REI Loop. This is the ultimate tool for real estate investors. It's loaded with deals, resources, and so much more. This platform will help you streamline acquisitions and dispositions and give you access to a powerful CRM to manage all of your relationships with clients, potential clients, and suppliers. You can take advantage of a free trial, or better yet, they have an offer of $99 a month. Check them out at the REI Loop on social and thereiloop.com. The REI Loop is your go-to platform for everything related to real estate and real estate investing. Grow a portfolio to give you the financial freedom and long-term legacy that you're after. Again, go to thereiloop.com and give them a follow at the REI Loop. Inspired to Invest is proud to support the Beyond Success program. In today's complex world, it's absolutely crucial for our youth to learn how to take charge of their financial future. We believe that every young person deserves access to accurate, practical financial information. Designed to bridge the gap, the Beyond Success program leverages a comprehensive educational bootcamp to equip young minds with essential financial literacy skills. At Beyond Success, it's not just about teaching financial literacy, it's also about fostering a foundation for a prosperous and empowered future. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. I value transparency, integrity, and trust. If you choose to work with me, you can be assured that business will be conducted honestly and openly. Time is of the essence in this industry, so you can expect nothing short of quick, clear communication from me. I'll keep you informed every step of the way so you feel comfortable throughout this entire process. Our homes are where we eat, sleep, relax, and play. My clients' best interests are at the heart of everything I do. And with this said, my service to you doesn't end when the transaction does. As your realtor, I'll not only help you buy and sell your property, I'll also educate and support you along the way. I want to help you fulfill your goal of home ownership and become your trusted real estate resource for life. I can't wait to share my passion for real estate with you. More importantly, find you the perfect house to turn into your home. Looking to buy, sell, or invest in Durham Region or Toronto? Let's chat. Hey everybody, welcome back to Inspired to Invest. I've got Victoria Cluney here with me today, and she's talking about how she started off her career in the military and then ended up transitioning into real estate quite by accident.
Mm-hmm.
And then more recently was featured on Dragon's Den talking about her tiny home business that she worked on with a contractor as her partner. And one thing I always like to ask people is, what's the craziest thing that's ever happened to them in life or business that they would like to share?
I mean, I hate to follow on with the Dragon's Den, but that is pretty crazy for me. It is something that was terrifying and, just so visceral in the feeling of fear that you have because,
Yeah.
The pitches are 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm very new in this business. I can't even pretend that I've been in the tiny home industry for years and would be able to confidently respond to every single question.
Yeah.
So to keep moving forward in that scenario,
Yeah.
I look back now and I'm like, holy, I
No,
won't
you
swear
got
on
the
this
deal. So just
podcast,
to add
but
some
got the
context for
deal.
someone that
Yes,
doesn't know, you got the deal and it
I
was our lead,
did.
believe that offered it to you, right?
Amazing.
So
Yeah,
can you talk
amazing.
about getting the deal and then what's really happened afterwards? Because a lot of times, deals can even fall apart and stuff like that. So maybe you can add a little bit more behind what's happened since you appeared.
That's right. So I got the deal, and then right away, Arlene reaches out. So we have meetings, we go through the due diligence, we make sure that we're still on the same page because,
Yeah.
now that you move forward with the deal, then you want to make sure, okay, are we still all aligned?
Yeah.
And we're
You check
still
out.
That's right. And we're
Yeah.
still going on our talks, right? And
Yeah.
so it is a slow process.
Yeah.
And yeah, but Arlene, the last message I got from Arlene is how excited she is and how much she loves this. And yeah, so we're continuing that on to find that right fit and synergy to make sure that everything is matching up the way that works for both Arlene and for us. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, obviously, just she's the longest running dragon from what I know. So I'm
Yeah.
sure she can identify talent and opportunity at the same time. Now, when you talk about things like lessons and challenges, what are some of the obstacles that you've faced, whether it's in this business or even just some of your other past investments?
Think the big obstacle for me is really, seeing underbellies sometimes of, say, organizations or even people, because I'm such a straight shooter. Integrity is really big for me, ethics. And you can get those rose-colored glasses sometimes and think that people are on the same page. And coming from an organization like the military, where you're certainly not perfect, that's for sure, but we are all operating under like really kind of rules and order.
Yeah.
And so that flexibility,
Should move that to real estate because I
oh,
think some
it's
people think
like
we're in the wild, wild west.
I was literally just going to say it is the wild, wild west.
Yeah,
So I've had to become quite ruthless about where I spend my time, who I spend it with.
smart.
I don't get it right every time, but when I do find out that there's a misalignment, then I remove myself. And so that to me has been probably the biggest eye opener
Yeah.
coming into this world. And then, also I know a lot of people are suffering with the with finances, and I did a private lending deal, naively did not do the right due diligence years ago, again, hindsight, and lost like $200,000, right? And so it's like that lit a fire under me, but it still stings.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm going through that as well. Like, with the education that I had and the communities that I was part of,
Yeah,
it was becoming very normalized and very commonplace. And I had done it successfully for a long time. And then all of a sudden, what was once successful is now crumbling. And yeah, I'm batting a perfect score. I'm like 20 for 20 with every single deal. And I'm cautiously optimistic. Some things will recover, but there's some things that, like, I mean,
yeah,
I'm just gonna have to, the only way out is through. So you just have to keep moving forward and just take those lessons, take those lumps, learn some things the hard way and just be grateful that I'm young enough that I can find a way forward because there's some people
exactly.
that have lost their retirement savings. Some people have, really been distressed and done other
Yeah.
things. So yeah, I can resonate with that.
It can, and real estate is a risk. Business is a risk. Investing is a risk. And this stuff does happen. And, just understanding if you know how to make it once, you can make it again. But
Yeah,
like you said, like time, energy, skill, all of those things can play a part in whether or not you can recover and how quickly you
absolutely.
can recover. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, on a positive note, what would you say is some of the best advice that you've been given?
Best advice that I've been given is really just that cliche, your network is your net worth.
Hmm.
I want to figure out like a different line because I hear it too much, but I
Yeah.
really do value connections made because one conversation can change the whole game for you, can open doors. And so for me, I've really leaned into that. And it's something that for the first 17 years of my career as an investor, I didn't do. And
Yeah.
it has been the most impactful thing for me.
And I think it's also a lot easier now, right? I mean, we're probably, I think, close in age and, we didn't necessarily have social media and we didn't have
Mm-mm.
texting and smartphones and, they were starting to kind of evolve
Yeah,
in that direction, but it's a lot easier now. And it's, even when I think about the connections I have with people I've met through my podcast and stuff, they're all across the United States. And, I'm even connecting them with things here. And it's like, that wouldn't have maybe been a thing 10 years ago, right? So,
absolutely not. Everybody has access now. So whether it's in person or virtual, there's going to be a meetup somewhere,
yeah,
or you can just connect on social media and just start following somebody who's doing cool things.
yeah. What would you say is something you're most proud of?
I'm most proud of taking I'm most proud of taking a leadership role in the community. It was something that when I came into the scene, right away, I hosted a webinar. I noticed that people were interested in Nova Scotia investing. So I hosted a webinar. And so, really positioning myself as a leader in the community, I then started to run a meetup. And now I rebranded it and I transitioned it to my own meetup.
Yeah.
I do the coaching now. And so I've
Yeah.
really been able to make an impact, and it's so fulfilling for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is that how you would say you spend your time now between the tiny homes, but also with the coaching?
Yes. Yeah. So I have a group coaching called Build Pro, which is for business owners and investors who want to learn how to build a stronger presence online and attract higher value clients so that they stop spinning their wheels and, not making the revenue and the cash flow that they need or building businesses. And so really helping people to take a stronger presence.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that occupies quite a bit of my time. I also own a number of businesses, and so I manage those teams. And I've got boots on the ground. I've got a boutique motel and
That's cool.
very busy,
Awesome.
but in
What
the
would you
best
say
way.
is next for you? Because you have this, robust series of businesses that you have. So is there a particular goal in mind that you're reaching towards when it comes to things like financial freedom and lifestyle?
So my plan is 9 figures as a business owner, and that'll be through a number of businesses as we continue to grow our portfolio. We're
Yeah.
doing developments right now. I want to build the coaching program to something that will be very impactful. Also expanding We Build, our Women Empowered. We've
Yeah.
opened up a chapter in Toronto. We have one in Ottawa. We just opened a virtual one this month. And so there's a lot of expansion that's happening. I'm not trying to add more shiny objects to the plate, but we're trying to expand on what we do really well, which is, buying, scaling businesses, as well as mentoring others to do the same.
Yeah. I think that's definitely really exciting. How would you say real estate investing has changed your life?
It's it's been the pinnacle thing that has opened up not only my eyes to a life that I never even imagined to be possible. Like you don't know what you don't know. So real estate investing has opened that up for me. It
Yeah.
has saved me financially when we were posted here to Ottawa during the financial crisis.
Yeah.
I didn't know how I was going to pay those bills. And so I doubled down. And real estate investing has taken that stress and that pressure and afforded a lifestyle now that, we have that freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really exciting. Now, in terms of this podcast, obviously the name is Inspired to Invest. So I always like to ask my guests if there's a particular quote that motivates or inspires them.
So I love a good Jim Rohn. And, the one that always sticks with me is if you want something to happen, you'll make it work. And if you don't, sorry, I messed that up.
It's okay.
If you want something to happen, you'll find a way. And if not, you'll find an excuse. And to me, that really is the deciding factor from success and failure
Yeah.
because all the setbacks is information, it's data, but you just keep going and you don't make that an option not to succeed.
Yeah. I had a mentor that
Find
once
the way.
said, you turn your setbacks into stepping stones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, for anyone that wants to get in touch with you in terms of your coaching or the tiny homes or rebuild, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
So Victoria Cluney on all platforms. Instagram's always the easiest from a communication standpoint. And as a special treat for your listeners, if they want to follow me on Instagram and then just message me, and let's say Inspire, we'll use the podcast name
Yeah.
Inspire. I will give a free personality quiz that I've developed. My background, we develop these personality quizzes to let them know what type of entrepreneur they are so that you know what the resources are that you need because oftentimes we are looking for the wrong things. And so when you know what your strengths are and you know what the resources are that you bring to the table, but also
Yeah.
what you need, you can really align yourself with the right people with the networking side.
I love that. So we'll definitely include all of that in the show notes below. Of course, thank you for your time here
Thank you for
today. I
having
know
me.
I'm sure you've got a very busy schedule on the go. For anyone that is watching or listening, we appreciate your time as well. If you have enjoyed this episode, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. And you've also followed along with us on social at Inspired to Invest podcast. And remember, when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks again. Thank you to the REI Loop for bringing you this episode of Inspired to Invest. The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, You are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.